Addressing public safety and policing is a high priority. Many submissions focus on crime rates, policing, and accountability. Concerns include gun safety, law enforcement misconduct, and strategies to improve safety in downtown and residential areas.
Go to our third agenda item. This is public safety and policing. Jay Schroeder, the president of the Police Officers Association, says the police department has lost 512 officers since 2021. That's the year that Tishaura Jones took office. Do you think her administration is to blame for them leaving, and what should she or could she have done differently?
I think the number one thing that I hear from police officers, their complaint is that their equipment is not up to date, and there are police cars that we're driving in that shouldn't really be on the road, and there are things that they've requested that they can't get as far as equipment. And they feel that when we were under state control before, they didn't have those issues as much, no matter what who the mayor was, and there was a different administration then. So I think that we could do better as a city government with providing the technology and equipment that police officers need on a day-to-day basis, not just police officers, everyone in the police department. The number two thing is, while we have continued to increase salaries, in a city like ours, we got to be beating the other counties and cities in our region in order to retain those officers. So there is a little blame to go around for not being aggressive enough, as we mentioned before, on increasing salaries.
So at the same time, some citizens have the perception that the city hasn't always held officers accountable when they violated civil rights, when they've behaved badly. The bar PM case, crashed this car into the bar and then arrested the bar's owner. The city is still pushing criminal charges against the bar's owner. Should the city drop that? And is the city doing a good enough job of holding bad officers accountable?
No, the city's not doing a good enough job, and it's easier to hold officers accountable when you're focused on quality. When you were able to raise salaries and you're able to get people to come back to that department, you're able to be a department of choice in the region, then you can begin to terminate and move more folks out faster. I'll focus on quality over quantity and make sure we have quality officers. And if you don't meet the standard, then we got to move you on, because that's going to continue to deteriorate the relationship between the community and the police department. And our police department's done the hard work of trying to repair that relationship between the community. We've got to make sure that we're moving that forward. And the city should not be suing bar owners based on things that they had no control over at all, which is a city employee running into someone's place of business.
So you'd like to see those charges dropped?
Absolutely.
So I can say that I think it's imperative that we have a fully staffed police department. I think we need to do a few things to make that happen. We need to pay them in a way that is commensurate with the rest of the St. Louis region, in a way that can attract and retain officers. And we need to be an employer that our police officers want to work for. Right now, the state of Missouri, is strongly considering taking back control of our police department. And that's not something I support. In fact, I strongly support retaining local control. And while we're having those conversations, I think the strongest argument, the best way for us to retain local control would be to be an employer that our city officers want to work for. Right now, both the POA and the Ethical Society of Police, the police officers union that represents primarily officers of color, both of those entities would rather have the state of Missouri be their employer.
What would you do to change that?
Well, sitting down and listening to the officers themselves and those organizations that represent their best interests, addressing the issues that would make them want to work for the state of Missouri. And those include, obviously, pay, but they also include, basic bureaucracy. The hiring process is largely considered to be major impediment to getting officers in. Recruitment, empowering and really funding a recruitment through the Ethical Society to increase diversity in our police department. It's basic things like ordering shirts, getting their police cars fixed, these aspects of being a police officer that under the city have become a lot less functional on the day-to-day lives of police officers that we can and we should have addressed long ago so that our police officers would rather be under city control. And if I'm elected mayor, that's one of the areas I'm going to absolutely focus on, is addressing those day-to-day issues that make our police officers rather work for the state than the city in which they serve.
At the same time, you have some residents who are frustrated because they feel like the police are violating people's civil rights. People bring up the bar PM case where an officer crashed his SUV into a bar, then another officer came and arrested the owner. Do you think we're doing enough to hold bad officers accountable?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, on the back end of that, I think one of the best ways that we can support our police department is to call out bad policing when it happens. And we need to do a better job of that. And I absolutely don't think that we did that in this case. It was jaw-dropping to me after the officers drove into the bar to have the administration say, well, it's just really difficult to drive an SUV. I mean, it was so insulting to our police force as that to identify that as the reason. I can drive an SUV, okay? we all can, and it isn't difficult to do. And I do think we have to call that out when it happens, because our good officers. And by the way, the vast majority of our police department are good officers, right? It's offensive to not call out the bad actors within them, and I think that's a gray area that we're going to have to walk through, and I will walk through.
Jay Schroeder, president of the St. Louis Police Officers Association, he says the department has lost 512 officers since 2021. That's the year you took office. Do you think any left because of you or your decisions?
I don't think so. I think that they left because they were reaching retirement age. You can retire from the police department after 20 years, which is, not a lot of time when you think of it. And at the time when I took office, the police department or the Police Officers Association was at an impasse from the previous administration. And we worked to get through that impasse and pass a really healthy benefits package for our officers. And since then, dozens have come back, and we've been able to hire a lot more through our recruitment program that the Police Foundation has helped us fund. Let's take a step back. Nationally, a lot of officers are leaving this profession. So it's not just St. Louis. I've seen with my brother and sister mayors from across the country, some of them offering up bonuses up to $100,000, and nobody's taking it. So,
wow.
Right. Tacoma, Washington is offering $25,000 sign-on bonus. So there is I would say this is a national issue, and St. Louis, unfortunately is down officers as well. But I also would like to point out that crime is still down. Despite being down officers. So this is also a time to look at what is the right number of authorized strength. And our chief has been doing that to make sure that we have enough to respond to the violent crime that we do have in the city of St. Louis.
So one of the more high-profile incidents involving the police during your time as mayor was when these pair of rookie police officers crashed their car into bar PM. And then another officer showed up, arrested the bar owner, allegedly beat him up. The city is still pressing criminal charges against that bar owner. Do you think the city has done a good enough job holding officers accountable when they violate people's rights?
Yes, and we saw that just with recent news that happened in 2023 of the officers who encountered someone who was about to commit suicide in Forest Park. Those officers are no longer with the force. Even though that news just came out in 2025, we handled that quietly, held those officers accountable, and they are no longer with the department. Chief Tracy, like the kids say, he doesn't play. when it comes to holding officers accountable. He wants to make sure his officers are out in community, rebuilding trust, going to hundreds of community meetings, and making sure that they're available. And I think that we can see that through our closure rate. Our closure rate for our clearance rate, nationally, the standard is 50%. We're at 70% because of the trust that we built with community.
Since 2016, I have been an avid supporter of our police. Everyone else that I know that is on this particular race, they are opposite of the police. They don't want to see the support of police. And I'm submitting that is a negative. Police are reasonable people. They read and they understand that they don't have those levels of support, and it's a detriment to the city of St. Louis in retaining those police.
You mentioned this issue of state control of the St. Louis police. That's something the governor has said he wants to do. Do you support that?
Well, under the current circumstances, I have to certainly consider it. And if you had to make me make a decision as of today, I would say certainly I am in support of it because we are in dire straits.
9 PBS and St. Louis Magazine engaged citizens in St. Louis about what issues are most important to them during this mayoral election. To see more of what the candidates had to say and read the full transcripts of the interviews, visit 9pbs.org/elections. This program is supported in part by the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation.